Welcome to our next event of the Career Paths event series of the Applied Anthropology Network. My name is Olivia. I'm current convener of the Applied Anthropology Network, and today's workshop will be the first one of a series of workshops in collaboration with the Anthropology Career Readiness Network. Today's topic is Building Your Anthropology Skills Toolkit, and it will be facilitated by Jennifer Studebaker. And yeah, with that, I would just hand over to you right away, Jennifer.
Thank you, Olivia. So as she mentioned, this is the first in what will be a 6-part series of webinars. So for our agenda today, I'll have a brief introduction, and then we'll move into the actual workshop section itself, followed by a period of discussion, and then an opportunity for you guys to provide feedback and some additional links. All right, so this is our first webinar, but we've got 2 more already scheduled coming up. Our next one will be on February 26th, led by my co-chair, Elizabeth Briety, who's on the call today. This will be learning how to build and grow your network. And in March, we've got exploring domains of practice with Raoul Nolan, my other fellow co-chair, who is also on the call today. So you'll get a chance to interact with them a little bit here, but if you want to get to know them a little better, I think these will both be really great opportunities. We're still landing on dates, but we've got 3 other webinars scheduled. So we've got setting up and conducting informational interviews, turning your CV into a resume, and explaining to anthropology to other people in your life. So go ahead, save the date for those other 2. We'll drop in the chat a link to sign up for the February webinar. So go ahead and add that to your calendars now. To introduce myself, I have a master's degree in anthropology. My name's Jennifer Studebaker, by the way. I know we already kind of covered that. I also have a bachelor's degree in anthropology, so my full sort of, higher ed experience was studying anthropology. I'm one of the current co-chairs of the Anthropology Career Readiness Network, which we'll introduce in a moment. Also, I recently started my own business, Studebaker Consulting LLC. So if you ever have any questions about what it's like to start your own business, I'm always happy to chat. And I believe Olivia is also going to share my email address and LinkedIn in the chat. So you'll have those to reach out to me through. All right. Moving along, so the Anthropology Career Readiness Network. Some of you may already be familiar with us, but for those of you that aren't, we are a volunteer-run group of anthropologists, that's including practitioners, instructors, and students, with the mission of helping prepare our next generation of anthropologists to meet, tomorrow's challenges and opportunities, so within the workplace and large society as a whole. We have a number of resources available to you. All of these are free of charge, with the exception of our workbook, which I'll go over in a moment. So we have our how-to tools for job seekers instructors. All of these are available on our website. We'll be going over a couple of them today, but these tools are also compiled, the job seeker ones, in our Career Tools for Anthropology workbook that's available for purchase on Amazon. You can get it as paperback or Kindle. And our choice to put it on Amazon was really to make sure that this resource was accessible to as many people as possible. So Amazon had the best distribution system for all of you around the world, as well as we could keep the price low at $10, so it'd be easy to afford. So Olivia, I know, is going to drop a link to that in the chat, as well as our website. On our website, you'll also find our Speakers Bureau. So our Speakers Bureau is a list of practitioners that have volunteered to be available for guest speaking opportunities, as well as if you think about having them join in your classes as potential collaborators, and as people that you can reach out to if you have questions about what it's like to work in their industries. We also have our World of Work blog. So this blog features, stories from people from all different backgrounds when it comes to anthropology. We have narratives from students, instructors, as well as practitioners digging into deep sort of, questions around what it means to practice and the state of anthropology in general. All right. Next up, we also have client-based class projects. So we usually partner with 2 classes per semester to work with a client and give them that practical experience. And we also have the Departmental Advisory Initiative. So this is a little deeper dive where my fellow co-chairs and I will partner with a department that's interested in improving the career readiness of their curriculum over the course of a year. So we usually begin that process with a couple-day on-site visit where we workshop with that group within the department, who then develops an implementation plan that we check in over the course of the year. So I believe we have about 5 active members and 5 active participants in that program, with 1 that just concluded at the University of Delaware. And there's a lot more resources on there. We've got reports and research that we've done. So definitely check out anthrocareerready.net if you're curious about the Anthropology Career Readiness Network. If you'd like to join, you can go ahead and submit a contact us form. And we're in the process of launching our MailChimp newsletter that you'll be able to subscribe to as well. All right, so before we get into the actual meat of the session today, we wanted to take the opportunity to listen to you and just gather some feedback around what are you looking forward to learning or experiencing in today's session and in future webinars. So I want to make sure that we're meeting expectations today, as well as thinking about how we make these sessions work best for you in the future. So I'll give you a couple minutes to drop in the chat what you're excited to learn or hoping to experience today. All right. One other item as we go through the workshop section today, we also have the Q&A open. So if you have questions that arise as we move through the content, feel free to submit them there, or you can also drop them in the chat when we get to the discussion section. All right. All right, seems like a big focus on skills, which I think will be a great transition into our next section. All right. So why are we focusing on skills? If you want to get a job, employers need to know what you can do to know if you're a good fit for the role. And for that to happen, you need to be able to know what you're good at and articulate it to those employers. And when it comes to skills, there's a lot of different ways that you inquire them. I think one of the bigger barriers for people entering the workforce from, an academic setting is a lot of times you're intimidated when you see these job postings where they want like 3 to 5 years of experience. And a lot of times you're like, well, how am I supposed to get experience if I just got out of school? And I will say your education counts as experience. So courses are one way that you can gain experience and build your skills. But there's also a number of other opportunities that you have throughout your education to build your skills. And if you're somebody that's maybe already graduated, you've been in the workforce a little while, but you're also looking for other ways to build skills to maybe transition to a different industry, I think a lot of these will also apply. So internships is a great way to get that practical on-the-job skill in a more structured environment. Field schools can give you opportunity to practice those research skills. If there's a lot of different ones, I think most people think of archaeology for field schools, but obviously there's field schools for biological, cultural, and I'm assuming maybe linguistic too out there. Clubs are another really great way to build up your skills, and also use skills that may not be able to access in the classroom. So from my own experience, I was a member of my anthropology club in graduate school. And I first started as one of the fundraising chairs, and then was elected as treasurer. So through that experience, I had the opportunity to write grants and win them. So I had that experience, as well as learning how to sort of manage a vendor relationship. So for example, Elizabeth Briety was a guest speaker that came and joined us that was funded through that grant program. And I got to learn how to process all the paperwork to make sure she got paid her honorarium. Which is a practical skill. It's something that I use in my current job, in my own business, as well as in previous workplaces as well. Next up, you have volunteering. So there's a lot of different settings in which you can volunteer. I think a lot of people think about religious institutions as an opportunity with different church groups or committees you could volunteer, as well as nonprofit organizations. So sharing from my own experience, again, one of the first things I did after graduating from grad school, I really missed having the opportunity to do research and engage in I had done a lot of work around food policy. And I ended up joining the Bloomington Food Policy Council where I lived, where I led our assessment group, and then later was elected as secretary. So again, that's another opportunity where I was getting research experience, learning how to operate a nonprofit, and also, have that relationship building with my community as well. And last but not least, you can learn skills on the job. So a lot of times we think about sort of the careers we want to have, but there's jobs that you have right now too that you do to earn your income that may not be ones that are always intuitive as, oh, these skills are valuable. So for example, my husband, before he went to graduate school, worked as a cook. If you think about, the pressures that you have in a kitchen in terms of managing orders, customer service when you're answering the phone for those pizzas, it's a lot of, navigating different relationships, providing consistent customer service. And these are skills that employers care about. So think about all the jobs that you've ever done, even if you babysat as a kid, that's, being responsible for another human being, you have skills. So our first exercise today, with that in mind, will be working through our Identify and Rate Your Skills tool. So Olivia is going to go ahead and drop a link to that. So this is available on our website under our For Students section. It's also in the workbook if you get a copy of that. And within this tool, we have 5 different skill sections. So we've provided a list of skills within each of these sections. The sections are broken up by recognized anthropological skills, project and program work, working with others, communication, and technical abilities. So the skills listed here are not exhaustive of all the possible skills. So feel free to add other skills that you may have in that other section on each one. But what we're asking you to do through this tool is to first, in this first column here, rate your confidence around those skills. We've got a scale from 1 to 5, with 1 being not confident at all and 5 being very confident. And in the second column, this is where you're going to rate sort of the importance of that skill, either for you currently in the context that you have, or if you're thinking about a future career and in terms of what you want to do, how valuable you think that skill will be. So you'll go ahead and rate that on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being not important at all and 5 being very important. Before we release you to work on this, we're going to ask you to pick one section to work through right now over the course of 8 minutes. I want to pause and see if there's any questions on this.
I also shared the PDF version in the chat as well as the link, so you can either go on the website or download it directly from the chat.
Okay, I see you've got a lot of really great questions. Okay, so you want to explain the difference between confidence and importance again. So confidence is how confident you feel about your current ability to use this skill. And then importance would be, you can either do this about your current context or thinking ahead. So if I want to get a job, say, as an archaeologist with the United States federal government, is this going to be a skill that's useful to me in that context? And in some cases, you may not know. In that case, I want to say it's okay to leave it blank and then come back to it after you've done more research around sort of the requirements for the work you're interested in. So pick one of these 5 sections, and we're going to give you 8 minutes to go ahead and work on it independently. And then we're going to come back and continue our discussion. All right. As you come back from your silent work time, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And we just want to hear your initial reactions to working through that first section. So did you encounter any surprises as you started to think about the skills that you have? You can go ahead and raise your hand or drop your thoughts in the chat. Okay, too much. It is a lot to work through, and especially if you're being very thoughtful. All right, looks like we've got a raised hand. Elena?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I will open my camera in a second. Nice to meet you all. I selected the section about communication, and I realized that lots of things are important there on my side, and my confidence is, the average confidence is around 2.5. What else should I say? I don't know. Should I add something else?
No, that's helpful. So it seems like, 2.5, like, you can do it, but maybe there's an opportunity to grow those skills a little bit.
Yes, I think it depends. Like the challenge here is not having people around me, community people talking about these subjects, and I think the challenge is being the strange kid, bringing something new or something which is in university or academia, and start to talk about it on social media. It's a bit hard. It's a bit hard to find the balance, I think. And then you see, you will look at the KPIs, for example, and you might see 1 or 2 likes, and you start to wonder why it is, like, why to waste time for this. What's the win here? But here, I think it's about resilience and focus and understanding what you really want and how you want to build that, and accept that sometimes it's not about likes, maybe. It's about how you can influence others just by reading the post. Yeah, I think it's about this.
Yeah. And I think that's a really great point. When you think about these skills, for example, when it comes to like running your own business, there's a lot of different ways that people get customers and clients. I've talked to some people where they don't even have a website. They just have a strong enough network and word of mouth that people find them. Whereas there's other people for them that social media and having that type of online engagement is really important for people to discover them. So really think about what fits for you and sort of the goals that you have for yourself. Bianca, would you like to share?
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. So, hi, I'm from Hungary, and currently I'm doing fieldwork for my thesis. I'm researching car mechanics. And as I was like going through all these skills, I realized that I'm rather good at what I think is important, but there is one thing: interviewing. Interviewing is something that makes me really anxious, and every single time I finish an interview, I always question myself. Did I do this great, or was this or that? So that is something that I'm pretty like I don't know, I'm just not really sure about, like how can I decide if I'm doing a good work at interviewing, questioning people, gaining trust from people I research. So yeah, that's all I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a great question, Bianca. And I think there's a few ways that you can maybe get feedback on your interviewing. Now, obviously, you may not always want to ask your participants to do that, but you could maybe think about having either somebody join you for those interviews as an observer, or practicing with a friend. I think you've got a whole bunch of potential new friends here on the call today that might be open to doing some practice interviews with you. But I believe in some of our future webinars, we're going to focus on informational interviewing, which is another way that you can sort of practice that. And if you're reaching out to fellow anthropologists, I think they would, often be open to maybe giving you some feedback on how your interview with them goes too, and a little reflexivity there. When you're thinking about, not being able to use anthropology or do your job as an anthropologist, I think Raul does a really great way of describing this, that there's careers in anthropology where you are working as an anthropologist or as a researcher, but there's also careers with anthropology where your anthropological skills that we're going over today will also be incredibly valuable for us. So a lot of times we like to emphasize that anthropology is a great sort of partner with any discipline you can possibly think of. So in the chat, I saw a lot of questions around how do we translate these anthropology skills for employers? And good for you. We've got a tool for that. So this tool, again, is also available in the For Students section on our website. Olivia is going to go ahead and share a link to it as well in the chat. And what this tool does, we developed this tool actually in response to interviews that we had with practitioners around, what would have been really helpful for them in their work. So what this tool does, if we've got 3 columns here. This first column is where we list out sort of your anthropological skills. So this is the training or the experience that you're going to have in your education. In the middle, we're going to highlight why this skill matters. So the first one here, we've got that anthropological perspective or cultural relativism. And why this matters in the workplace. You know how to see things in context and recognize patterns. You understand that there are other ways of seeing and doing than what you have experienced. And the way that you can translate these skills for a work setting with this anthropological perspective, we have cultural awareness or sensitivity, systems thinking, or also diversity, equity, and inclusion, though maybe don't include that one right now. So depending on the job. What this does is it really gives you a way to translate those skills into more commonly used language. Now, a couple things to note when it comes to using this particular tool in terms of translating those skills is first, you want to know your audience. So think about who's going to be the hiring manager reading this, who's going to be in that HR office if they have one. And for example, if you're applying for a job that requires a PhD, that's going to be doing anthropological research, you probably don't have to do as much translation as you might if, say, you're applying for a consulting job in a corporate setting. Next, recognize that terminology can vary by sector. So what we've got here are kind of at the highest level, more generalized terms, but depending on sort of the industry or the type of work, they may have more specific jargon that they like to use. Like, for example, I have my PMP certification, which is for project management. And, project managers love to take common words and have them mean other things. So there's maybe certain certain terminology that you need to learn to sort of access that industry. And in that case, this is a great start, but then you can also apply your sort of research skills to learning about the culture within that particular sector that you're interested in joining. Next, when you're using this tool to apply for a job, I would first recommend that you read the job description very closely and see what you can kind of back map from the skills that they're asking for, if you see any of those in that right-hand column. And so you can see that you have those skills from your education as well. Because I think a lot of times you can get frustrated where it's like, well, I don't know if I necessarily have, any quantitative analysis skills. But then if you think about, well, I still know how to interpret data. I know how to process, a group of comments that we've received into, frequencies. Think about the different ways that you've used those skills previously. All right. I'm just checking the chat real quick. So I think there's a lot of questions, and we're going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen and open up for discussion. So I'll be participating, but also my co-chairs, Rel and Elizabeth, may join us as well. So you can go ahead and drop some questions if you want in the QA feature or in the chat, or as we did previously, raise your hand. And we've got a good amount of time for discussion. And if you're not sure what to ask, I've got a couple prompts for you as well. So how do you feel about your skills now that we've gone through this initial process? And which skills are you still unsure on how to get experience? Yeah, Ryle?
So I just wanted to add one or two things to what Jennifer has been saying. When you talk to people about finding work as an anthropologist, it's logical and sort of almost inevitable that people are worried about whether they know enough, about whether they have the right skills and so forth. What I would say to those people is this: it's really important to figure out what skills you already have before you start worrying about skills that you might not have. And here's why. Your anthropology background, at whatever level, bachelor's, master's, PhD, has given you a very, very useful toolkit, but you may not always recognize the skills that you have. And one of the exercises that I give my own students is to say to them, where have you worked ever in your life? And a lot of people in the United States work as waiters or waitresses in restaurants. And if you break that job down, it's incredibly complex. And it teaches you a lot about working with numbers, working with people, managing priorities, having a strategy, and so forth and so on. And people come to realize that they actually know a great deal more than they think they do. And that you can translate those skills into a workplace environment very, very easily. But the second point is this: skills are something that you can always learn. And don't worry too much about whether you have the skills to do a particular job. If you get hired for that job, your employer will make sure that you learn those skills. And all of us have had to learn things on the job that we didn't know in school. So don't worry too much, in other words, about what you haven't learned. Think instead of what you do know how to do, and then be prepared to learn new things once you get the job. It's a simple point, but I think it's something that we need to keep in mind. That's all.
Yeah, I see Elena asked in the chat, so how do you get more involved with the network and what it means to be a part of it? So the Anthropology Career Readiness Network, we're fully volunteer run, so anybody can join. There's no cost to join. As I said, you can get on our email list by going to the contact us form on our website and submitting your information. Also, we have a LinkedIn group you could join. I try to share job postings as I see them that come up there, as well as announcements related to your network. We also have, in addition to our bi-monthly newsletter, we have bi-monthly meetings that you're welcome to join, where we'll cover different topics. But also, a lot of you have been asking about how you get experience if you're doing an online program. So one of the things that we do is we work with volunteers. So if there is a research project that you would like to do, or if you would like to help us by volunteering, we're happy to partner with you and think through a way for you to get practice some of those research skills while also supporting the network. It's worth acknowledging that we're going through a very difficult time right now, especially when it comes to jobs that either depend on grant funding, the technology industry where a lot of anthropologists have worked historically is cutting back on UX. So I want to acknowledge that right now, it's not necessarily going to be easy to find a job. But I think one of the things to emphasize about your anthropological toolkit is it will help you navigate that uncertainty by understanding what are the opportunities around you in your current context, even if it's not sort of the dream job that you have. So, we might have to muddle through a little bit until we find, our opportunity, or in some cases, make your own opportunity. So we've got, Dan, I see your hand up. I want to answer a comment in the Q&A first, and we'll switch to you. So we've got a question for those of us still in our studies and are trying to decide on a thesis topic. They're in a master's right now. How can we use the end of our studies to later enter the workforce? And how much does the topic matter? So I think the topic matters as much as you want it to. If you're wanting to move into a particular area, it will likely help you that you have experience in terms of that particular topic, in terms of like knowledge or expertise. But it won't stop you if you want to go into a different type of work. I would also say if you're in the tail end of your program, this is when you want to start networking with people and making connections. So there's conferences where you can start networking, but also start thinking about how you can engage in your local community in terms of getting to know people and understand the type of opportunities there. I think there's a lot of ways that you can use these skills to navigate the job market as well. So Dan, I'll go ahead and let you ask, and then I'll give Riley and Elizabeth a chance to react to stuff too.
Thank you. As I was just thinking about how to best, like what to write in my CV and in the cover letter, and I thought it may be like helpful to me if you just explained what kind of clients do you typically cater to? Like what are these people? Because I'm not sure. I don't understand who values anthropology that much as to, pay for it.
So you're asking who hires anthropologists?
Yeah, I thought like as you have your own anthropological consulting, I think it would be useful for my understanding, if that's an okay question to ask.
Sure. So in terms of my business, I'm still actually working a little bit on honing in on who is my customer quote. But in terms of the groups that I reach out to, I primarily focus on local governments because a lot of times they issue RFPs. So it's a really nice way to find who's got a project that they need somebody to help them with. I also network with other small businesses to, get to know about, the requirements that they have. For example, I had a potential customer I met with yesterday that had a social club that they were trying to start up, but were having issues in terms of understanding, how to keep members. So I can apply that sort of skill set in terms of helping them solve that problem and understanding their current member experience, and maybe why some of those past members left, and then developing sort of a better protocol for them in terms of keeping those members. And, in terms of clients, it's pretty broad in terms of the potential sort of venues for anthropologists to work with. For example, I know other people who do consulting that work primarily on federal contracts with focuses on health. And I'll go ahead and pass Elizabeth and Raul. They can probably share a little about their experience.
So,
if you want to.
yeah, if the question is who buys anthropology, who pays anthropologists to work for them, I think actually just about anybody does. What I think people who have spent all their lives in school, whether in the US or somewhere in Europe, may have a little trouble sort of understanding is that the people who've been teaching you anthropology are academics, and academics inhabit a cultural universe which is in many respects unique. There are very few other people in the world like academics. They get to work as individuals, isolated from one another on topics of their own choosing, things that interest them. And they see that work primarily in terms of intellectual research, which is then sort of put into papers and published in academic journals, which the rest of us are obliged to read. That's not what practicing or applied anthropologists wind up doing. What we do is we have to connect with other people. It's not about us anymore. It's about us in relation to other people who have issues, problems, opportunities, and challenges, and they would like us to help them resolve those things one way or the other. So instead of asking, well, is this really anthropology? The question is, how can I use the anthropology that I know to help people in that organization or in that community solve a problem or meet a challenge or implement an opportunity? And if you have that mindset going in, there are absolutely no end of employment possibilities. But what you have to be able to do, and this is the purpose of this particular workshop, is you have to be able to explain yourself to those people in terms where they will then say, yes, this person can be useful to us. So it doesn't really matter where did you get your degree from or what courses did you take, but rather, what can you do for them that will be helpful to them? And thinking about it that way helps you understand how many different employment opportunities there actually are out in the world. Whether the economy goes up or goes down, people need help with solving problems and meeting opportunities. If you are there, you can help them, and you can get paid for that. And all of us have. I mean, I've worked for quite a few different places. I could give you names, but it's like all of these places were communities, organizations, large government organizations, small communities in different parts of the world. All of them had things that they thought, yes, I can help them with. And when they figured that out, I got hired. Elizabeth, I'm sure you have similar sorts of things.
Yeah, the thing I would say is that many employers don't hire you because you are an anthropologist. They hire you because they have a problem that they think you might be able to solve. So the worry that I'm hearing and reading in some of the comments is that you're very focused on the fact that you are an anthropologist, and that's great. But now you have to make a leap of faith. You have to jump, and you have to put yourself in the position of an employer. The employer doesn't care necessarily that you're an anthropologist. The employer wants to hire people that will build the organization and make it stronger. So where can you fit in? And you could fit in many different places. The number of areas that people have mentioned in the chat is really.
Yeah,
Jana,
and
I think you have.
yeah,
go ahead.
Danae, or yeah, go ahead.
Speak.
Oh, you can't. Oh, there you are.
Okay. Now you can hear me. So yeah, nice to meet you and thank you for everything. I'm coming from Greece. I actually work as a consultant for the past 6 years, but I'm still expanding and learning new things. But I just wanted to share from my experience in the European context that sometimes you have to be a bit aggressive and learn how the funds, European funds, work and found your own people or communities that have these problems, like Rael mentioned, and you bring the money with them, to them, for you, and for the community. I mean, this is one way also of networking.
not only in local level, but then you can go to national, European, and now you see it's a global panel that we attend. So I think that, okay, maybe this aggressive approach needs a bit more experience to have the confidence. But I think it's important to learn how things work in its setting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think, I'll go and where I'll go. As Ryle noted too, like, anthropologists in work context usually don't work alone too. So speaking from my experience as somebody that works kind of as a solopreneur, as you call it, a lot of times people in my position team up with other anthropologists or people with certain skill sets to provide an overall sort of service for either a community or a particular client. So one of the things to think about is that you're not alone in this. I think it's really important to build those relationships with other people doing similar work, even if it is like exactly the same type of work, because there may be situations where there's opportunities that I might not be able to take advantage of, but I have this friend that I know she's really great at this and I can go ahead and refer her. Ryle, would you like to?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I do think, though, that where this conversation is tending to go is in the direction of the next webinar session that we're planning, which is about networking, which is one that Elizabeth knows a lot about. So, this conversation will continue, if you see what I mean, because the kinds of things that we're identifying as ways to get connected and ways to find opportunities, that's the topic of the next webinar. So I think we can all look forward to that.
Mm-hmm. And there's one more question in the Q&A around where there's grants for particular topics in the Global South. I don't think we can answer any of that right off the top of our heads, but maybe that's something that we could follow up on after. We are getting close to our close. I do want to go ahead and share my screen, and on Ryle's note, emphasize that we've got our next section on February 26th, which will focus on networking. So if you'd like to register, Olivia's going to share that link in the chat, or you can look for the post to come out tomorrow to go ahead and register for that, and we can continue this conversation. So the goal with this webinar series is to continue to build your skills and fluency so that you can have more confidence as you move ahead. And Elizabeth, do you want to share a little about the networking?
Yes, sure. So we will be talking about how social and professional networks are different. We'll talk about networking and some of its characteristics. We will focus on why networks are useful and effective, what you personally can get out of them. And then we'll talk more specifically about how you interact with others when you are trying to network. So having a goal is very important. Doing good preparation is very important. Being polite, of course, is very important. And then after we cover that material, then we'll do an exercise and then follow that up by discussion.
Thanks, Elizabeth. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Olivia.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jennifer, and also to Ryle and Elizabeth for sharing your thoughts on this. Yeah, an hour went by quite fast, and I know this is just the beginning of a conversation, but yeah, there's more events ahead. And please feel free to share your thoughts on this event. We have a feedback link that you can find in the chat. Everything will also be on Padlet. And you will also be able to find the recording of this event on our YouTube channel soon, either tomorrow or the day after, and it will also be linked on Padlet. You will also be able to already submit some questions for the upcoming workshop with Elizabeth next month if you want, if you like, via the Padlet. If you maybe cannot attend, or if there's just specific questions that you already have in mind, because that also helps us to prepare for it. And yeah, if you want to learn more about Acorn, feel free to check out their website as well as about AAM. We have also many other initiatives and projects going on where you can learn more about what applied anthropologists actually do. We have an annual conference and apply club. So if you're interested in getting involved or just attending some of our other events, make sure to follow us on our socials. And yeah, again, thank you so much for this workshop today, Jennifer, and for the collaboration with Acorn in general. We're really, really grateful for you sharing your expertise with us and everyone who's attending. And I wish all of you a good rest of your days and evenings, and hopefully see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.